Good evening. My name is Joseph Sipitz. I'm here for the St. Joseph County Public Library. It's time for another Saturday night story. And tonight we've got something special. I've lit my Yoda candle in preparation for something really big. So today what we're going to do is I'm going to read from the Godzilla FAQ. It's a book from Brian Solomon, and I'll be reading from a chapter called Godzilla's Greatest Hits, um, part of the list, a top 10 list of Kaiju Smackdowns. So, there are so many things to love about Japanese giant monster movies, but if we're honest with ourselves, the most fun thing about Japanese giant monster movies is getting to watch unthinkably huge, exotic creatures pummel each other mercilessly while taking out vast swaths of our environment in the process. Like a car wreck you can't just look away from, there's something about Daikaiju action that fills Godzilla fans with ecstasy. We wait for the battles to happen, and when they do, we grab some popcorn, pick a side, and watch in gleeful rapture. And nobody does monster movies like Godzilla does monster action. Over the years, the King of Monster has engaged in countless memorable confrontations. He's won some, he's lost some. Spoiler, he's mostly won. But every time, he gives us our money's worth. And although it's a challenge to narrow it down to mere 10, here's a look back at some of the Big G's finest squabbles. Because you can never get enough rubber suited mayhem. First, King Kong from the movie King Kong vs. Godzilla, 1962. The two most famous giant monsters of all time cross paths more than once in this camp classic, but it's the final struggle that has etched itself into the annals of sci fi cinema history. The whole thing is set up perfectly, with King Kong being drugged and airlifted directly to the base of Mount Fuji to do battle with Godzilla there, in the hopes that maybe the monsters will just destroy each other and spare humanity once and all. Once there, the creatures use their respective strengths to their advantage, with Kong proving he is the more intelligent of the two, using plans and strategies to undo the massive lizard. Meanwhile, Godzilla has fierce atomic breath at his advantage, and is more than willing to fill the Fuji Valley with a sickening scent of singed ape fur. Because Toho's version of Kong is able to absorb energy from electricity like Frankenstein's monster, a nearby storm cloud provides the big gorilla with just an extra boost that he needs to take it to Godzilla in a big way. In the end, both beasts tumble off a steep cliff into the Pacific, and only the eighth wonder of the world emerges from the waters to swim safely home. Advantage: Kong. Opponents: Mothra larvae. Film: Mothra vs. Godzilla, 1964. Um, Godzilla's track record isn't the best in the earlier films, but he's still evil. Because, after all, you can't end a monster movie that has the bad guy winning, can you? Even though Godzilla manages to fry the benevolent Mothra herself earlier in the film, sweet revenge is eventually enjoyed by the two grotesque Mothra larvae that emerge from the tremendous multicolored egg. If you think a battle between Godzilla and two writhing, faceless, web spinning worms can't possibly be engaging, then you need to think again, because watching those relatively little scrappers take it to the King of Monsters in with everything they've got provides one of the more satisfying experiences a Godzilla fan is likely to enjoy. Whether it's latching onto his tail like a rabid puppy dog or relentlessly hurling endless yards of unbreakable silk fibers at the big guy until he can't move, these two young Kajai put their hearts, assuming they have hearts, into the affair and eventually triumph when the webbing encased Godzilla finally plunges helplessly into the ocean. Advantage: Mothra larvae. Well, there you go. All right. Opponent: Rodan. From the film Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster, 1964. Ironically, in some ways, the most fun and memorable battle in Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster, is not the final battle, but rather an earlier confrontation between Godzilla and the giant pteranodon Rodan. The first ever meeting between Toho's oldest kaiju It's a historic moment that does not disappoint. Shortly after emerging at the same time, the two creatures first engage in a little collective property damage before deciding it would be much more fun to try and tear each other apart. Perhaps the only thing not to like about the fight is that we don't get a conclusive winner. This goody two shoes Mothra arrives on the scene to persuade Godzilla and Rodan to put aside their petty differences and unite against the common threat of King Ghidorah. Although eager to continue rumbling, the two monsters eventually relent in time to rescue the valiant Mothra from the golden clutches of Ghidorah. Advantage, no contest. Opponent, King Ghidorah from Destroy All Monsters, 1968. In the ultimate testament to the fact that King Ghidorah may be the most powerful threat of them all, in Destroy All Monsters it takes the combined might of nearly all of the denizens of Monster Island to defeat him. Initially brainwashed by the invading Killiaks in a bid to wipe out human civilization, when Godzilla and his cohorts are finally freed from their bondage and able to think for themselves, they team up to wipe out Ghidorah once and for all. Joining the Big G are the likes of Mothra, Rodan, Gorgosaurus, Baragon, Anguirus, Kumonga, Manda, Varan, and even Godzilla's son, Minya. Amongst the ingenious strategies employed is the use of Agris's spiky self to impale the three-headed dragon, and Minya finally finding the gumption with a helpful step on the tail from Dad to blast his very first own atomic fire breath. Even so, Ghidorah nearly emerges as victorious, but in the end, the accumulated might of the monsters is just too much to handle. All right, maybe let's go with this one. Okay, opponents, Mothra and Kiryu from Godzilla Tokyo SOS 2003. This monster pileup is one of the most riveting and well choreographed mashups from the Millennium era, and in which Godzilla takes on not just Mothra, but also Mothra's newest larvae, as well as the Millennium incarnation of Mechagodzilla, also known as Kiryu. After Mothra flies in the path of Godzilla's breath in order to save her young ones, the noble creature is destroyed. But before Godzilla can follow through on toasting the larva, the new and improved Kiryu springs into action, taking it to Godzilla with a powerful drill that stabs directly into the monster's chest. The larvae do their part by trapping the Big G in an elaborate web of silk, putting the monster at Kiryu's mercy. It is at that moment that the soul of the original 1954 Godzilla, trapped inside the body of the mechanized Kiryu, causes the robot to latch onto its modern-day Godzilla and leap into the bay, taking the king of monsters, past and present, to the bottom of the sea. Winner, Kiryu. Finally, opponent, Kaiser Ghidorah, film Godzilla Final Wars 2014. Godzilla Final Wars is filled with one magnificent battle after another as Godzilla goes through a round-robin tournament of sorts of many of his old foes. In the end, he faces the toughest challenge against a creature initially unleashed by the Exians as Monster X and later revealed to be Kaiser Ghidorah, a larger and more powerful version of King Ghidorah that stands on four legs with rippling muscles. A weakened and exhausted Godzilla faces off against the roided-out Ghidorah with the fate of planet Earth and the human race hanging in the balance, while mutant Ozaka and the crew of the Godzilla foil the plans of the insidious controller of the Xenians. Godzilla neutralizes the threat of Kaiser Ghidorah, besting this new version of his greatest foe, inviting aliens from Earth forever. There we go. Good night.